Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing, Inc.
Caribbean countries removed from the EU's blacklist of tax havens. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Friday, May 17th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. Barbados, Bermuda, and Aruba are no longer in the European Union's bad books as far as tax matters are concerned. The EU on Friday removed the 3 Caribbean nations from its list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. They were among several countries placed on the blacklist in March for failing to change their tax rules, which the EU deemed at risk of facilitating tax evasion in other countries. But the EU Council said in a statement on Friday that Barbados and Bermuda have been moved to the list of jurisdictions that have undertaken sufficient commitments to reform their tax policies. They will still be under EU scrutiny, but being on the so-called grey list effectively gives them more time to be fully compliant. Aruba, meantime, is off all lists. The Dutch Caribbean island was removed altogether because it changed legislation to make it compliant with EU requirements. Reacting to the decision to take Barbados off the blacklist, Prime Minister Mia Mottley welcomed it and said it would have benefits for the country.
Insurance companies that could have left us will not now do so because they will not be prohibited from doing business in Europe as a result of the blacklist. So this has tangible meanings for us as we go forward. It doesn't mean that the battle is over, because we live in a world, quite frankly, that persons will want to continue to extract every competitive advantage that they can. And competitive advantage also comes from the perspective of the imposition of rules and bureaucracy that will act as a non-tariff barrier in real terms to keep some countries uncompetitive.
And Bermuda's Finance Minister, Curtis Dickinson, said he was extremely pleased and thankful his island was off the list. But he says it's by no means the end of the work to continue strengthening the framework in this area. Belize, Dominica, Trinidad and Tobago, and the U.S. Virgin Islands are among 12 jurisdictions that remain on the blacklist. CARICOM countries have consistently condemned the decision by the EU to place regional countries on its blacklist, and after a 2-day meeting in Grenada this week, CARICOM foreign ministers said strategies put in place to address the blacklisting include calling on CARICOM ambassadors in Brussels and New York to engage third countries on this critical issue. The ministers said they viewed the EU's approach as inappropriate and reminded that the relevant agency to deal with these matters is the OECD Forum for Harmful Tax Practices, which allows other member states to be present and to be consulted. In that regard, they've called on the EU to adopt a more collaborative approach. Barbados has passed its first review under its International Monetary Fund Extended Fund Facility arrangement, and the country now stands to receive a further $49 million, bringing the total amount borrowed under the arrangement to $98 million, and that's once the IMF's Executive Board gives its approval after considering the review next month. The announcement was made Friday afternoon by IMF Deputy Mission Chief, Caribbean 2 Division, Bert Van Selm, at a press conference with Prime Minister Mia Mottley and other government officials. He was speaking a day after an IMF team, which he led, had ended its 10-day mission to review the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program.
Continues to make strong progress in implementing its ambitious and comprehensive economic reform program. International reserves, which had reached a low of $220 million, 5 or 6 weeks of import coverage at end May 2018, have more than doubled since then. and the completion of the domestic part of the debt restructuring has been very helpful in reducing economic uncertainty, and the new terms agreed with creditors have put debt on a clear downward trajectory. All programs for end March under the EFF have been met, some with wide margins, the program target for net international reserves, for example, and also the target for central bank and net domestic assets. The target for the primary surplus, central government grants to state-owned enterprises, central government domestic arrears, and social spending were all also met.
Meantime, Prime Minister Motley thanked Barbadians and the social partnership, which she said had contributed to the progress to date. She said it was clear from the IMF assessment so far that the country was headed in the right direction.
Really, the passing of the right road signs on the journey to success and transformation. And we have a few more road signs to pass, but as long as the people of Barbados stay the course, I assure you that we shall be successful in being able to overcome what really was a very turbulent and difficult legacy after a lost decade. But equally, we shall not only overcome if we do and agree on the mission that in all that we do, that we shall be the best that we can be, from the economic to the productive sectors, from the household to the church, to the community groups, to our enterprises, to being able to be prepared to take on risk, because at the end of the day, nothing ventured, nothing gained. If we can do those other things, we shall not only regain the lost ground, but we shall transform this country to continue on its path of punching above its weight.
St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris has denied having discussions with Greek billionaire Alki David, who left the country this week after appearing in court on drug charges. David, who is the heir to the Coca-Cola fortune, faces charges of possession, intent to supply, and importation of $1.3 million worth of cannabis, following the discovery of drugs on his private jet when he arrived in the Twin Island Federation along with American businessman Chase Ergen, with whom he is in a cannabis business venture. He was released on $300,000 EC bail and is due to return to St. Kitts for another court appearance on September 23rd. The 51-year-old billionaire alleged at a press conference this week that he had a meeting with Prime Minister Harris at the Park Hyatt Hotel last Sunday, but suggested that talks broke down when the country's leader asked him to do something he didn't want to. But speaking on local radio on Friday, Harris categorically denied the allegation and described David's statement as malicious.
I want to make it absolutely clear that certainly neither Mr. David nor Mr. Edwards or Mr. Charles, whatever name he carries, are friends, investors, partners, or have any relationship with myself. And I have never organized or in fact engaged in any meeting with either parties. I knew of Mr. David after the matter broke in the news.
Well, the Prime Minister said he was actually out of the island when David was arrested and only encountered the businessman when he returned to the island.
On Sunday last, I had reason to be at the Park Hyatt. I was accosted by a gentleman who in the end identified himself as Mr. David. And we had an interaction for about a minute and a half. Because once I realized who he was, I then got a preview of the kind of character, unstable and unbalanced he was. He said to me, "Your government arrested me illegally." And I looked at him, in disbelief. One, I didn't know who he was until he made the approach. And secondly, that he would come to the head of a country in that particular matter. And I said to him, if you come to a country and you don't know the laws, you should consult with your lawyer or the government. And before I could have finished that, the guests on whom I was awaiting to have had a lunch, arrived, and Mr. David walked away.
Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, the Guyana government criticized for giving big positions to ministers who were forced to leave their jobs because of dual citizenship. Stay with us.
The world's debt is 184 trillion US dollars. That's about 86,000 US dollars per person. Join Linda Tessar, the Central Bank of Barbados 2019 Distinguished Visiting Fellow for the 6th edition of the Caribbean Economic Forum, as she helps us understand just how in a world of rising debt, we in the Caribbean can stay afloat. Follow this important live broadcast of the 6th Caribbean Economic Forum on social media and on radio and television in Barbados and across the region. Thursday, May 23rd at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. in Jamaica. Visit www.centralbank.org.bb for more information.
Welcome to this year's 50th Caribbean Broadcast Union Assembly on the island of San Andres. San Andres is a small archipelago located in between Jamaica and Panama in the western Caribbean Sea. A lush, exotic island rich in culture, history, gastronomy, and breathtaking scenic views. Known for its beaches and 7-colored crystalline waters, the island of San Andres will be proudly hosting this year's event. CBU members will enjoy top-of-the-line accommodations for an unforgettable experience in San Andres, connecting Caribbean nations through this year's 50th edition of the CBU Assembly.
Today we are talking about Rick's case. Tell our audience a little bit about who Rick is.
Rick is a very successful businessman. We're here in his penthouse home, as you can see, who was on his way to a bar mitzvah in Boca Raton for his nephew, goes to Sears to not only buy something but to return a couple of items, who gets arrested and charged with a felony.
Guyana's opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo has criticized the government for giving what he described as cushy, high-paying jobs to the 4 ministers who resigned over their dual citizenship. The 4 ex-ministers, Carl Greenidge, Joseph Harmon, Dominic Gaskin, and Dr. Rupert Roopnarine, have all been given senior posts in the ministries they once headed. Jagdeo says the government is already top-heavy and the appointments will only add to that.
I supported his retention in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the purpose of ensuring continuity on the border matter, which is a matter that we don't treat in a political fashion. That it's not partisan, we have a national position on. But he has become the Foreign Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with responsibility for the Department of Frontiers and Territorial Integrity and the Department of Trade and Economic Cooperation. So what is the portfolio of the minister? And even the choice of the word, Foreign Secretary. In the UK, the Foreign Secretary is the minister. That's the choice of the word. And what happens to the Director General? What is that person's portfolio now? And it's all confusion at the ministry. I'm sure it will be confusion there.
Gaskin, the former business minister, has been appointed Director of Manufacturing and Marketing within the Ministry of Business. Dr. Roopnarine, the former public service minister, now serves as the Director of Public Service Training within the Ministry of the Presidency, and a former state minister, Joseph Harmon, is Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency. Over in Belize, opposition legislator Julius Espat plans to seek compensation after the Court of Appeal ruled that his challenge to his ejection from Parliament almost 3 years ago be heard by the Supreme Court. Espat was physically removed from the House of Representatives in August 2016 on the instruction of then House Speaker Michael Perfeet after he sought to question aspects of the Auditor General's special audit on corruption at the Immigration Department. He was later suspended from the House and lost out on his salary as an elected parliamentarian. Espat took the matter to the Supreme Court, but Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin struck out the claim on the basis that it lacked merit. He appealed to the Court of Appeal, which ruled on Thursday that the Chief Justice made the wrong decision. Espat's case must now go before a new judge at the Supreme Court. He maintains that his ejection was unlawful because the Speaker and parliamentarians did not follow the proper procedures to call for a vote to name him. Espat told reporters after the Court of Appeal ruling exactly what it is he wants from the Supreme Court.
One, we want to make sure that the decision that was done was erroneous, so that is setting a precedence that even if you are the leader of a country in the case of the Prime Minister, or if you are the Speaker of the House within Parliament, you are also to abide by the rule of law. That is one. Two, that I be paid back what was taken away from me. My salary was deducted for a large period of time, and any other claim that we might decide. We haven't decided on that as yet. But the most important, above all, is to set the rule of law in place. I think that's important, and it can't be done by means of rhetoric that PUP say or UDP say, or when I get in a government we can change it. That in the eyes of the people becomes insignificant. And so now we are relying on the third branch of government, which is the judiciary, to set precedent as to what is right and what is wrong, and for it to not happen again.
Ghana Carnival kicks off this weekend, and Tobago prepares to host Mr. Caribbean 2019. The details in this week's Newsline Entertainment.
Guyana Carnival kicks off on Friday. The festivities will run until May 27 and will include various street parties, concerts featuring regional entertainers including Kes the Band, Machel Montano and Buju Banton. The highlight of the carnival, the road parade, will be held on May 26.
We really want to work this year on the look and feel. I know Bobby would have spoke about other carnivals around the world, but we want to have a real look and feel and really bring some of the Guyanese aspects also to these events. And we want to make the events a little different, that when patrons go to these venues, that you have different experiences, at, if not all, at least most of them.
Mr. Caribbean is coming to Tobago. Tobago will host the third edition of the competition on June 1st. Organizers say the event aims to promote a positive image of Caribbean men. Contestants come from Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, the British Virgin Islands, Dominica, Guyana, St. Lucia, Suriname, Trinidad, and Tobago.
This competition is one intervention that gives young men another purpose and platform for highlighting their many positive attributes and talents. The show is open to males between the ages of 18 and 45, giving them an opportunity to express their natural charm and, moreover, their abundant talent. The Mr. Caribbean competition was created against the backdrop of the disappearing male in Caribbean society as it relates to avenues that showcase the tremendous amount of talent that abounds within young men, in comparison to the plethora of opportunities that exist for their female counterparts to express themselves, boost their confidence and self-esteem, and advance their education.
Contestants will compete in magnificent wear, talent, swimwear, formal wear, and interview rounds. Marie-Claire Williams, Newsline Entertainment.
Ahead in Newsline Sport, West Indies lose to Bangladesh in the Tri-Nations Series final. We'll tell you how that went down after the break.
Destiny, let me ask you, explain to us that are not familiar with polylife. Exactly what is polylife?
Polylife is when one man shares multiple women. In my lifestyle, we all share each other.
Okay, the man shares the women, but there's only one man.
Yes.
I've never experienced with our relationship. There's only been me, Destiny, and Mikhail.
I think people have been expecting my album for a while because I spoke about it in some interviews, but it's been a long time coming and I am a perfectionist. So in the meantime, that's why I'm doing this project, because I really want to put that music out there that, you know, I think people need to hear. And Vi is a part of a compilation or a project or an EP, whatever you guys would like to call it.
Buju Banton's Long Walk to Freedom tour made its way to the Dutch-speaking South American nation of Suriname on May 4th, and from all indications, it was another successful stop. Persistent rainfall threatened the concert, but that did not stop the patrons from streaming into the venue. Buju and his team are already back in the island preparing for the next gig, a pre-Mother's Day show on May 11th in Grenada.
That was my goal for this album. I really wanted to showcase my versatility because I do feel like as an artist I have that. And there's not a lot of artists that have that. Either you have a sound.
West Indies failed to hold their nerve when it mattered most and slumped to a 5-wicket defeat to Bangladesh under Duckworth-Lewis Stern in the Tri-Nations Series final on Friday. In their final competitive one-day international ahead of the World Cup, which begins at month-end, West Indies struggled to contain a buoyant Bangladesh as the Asian side easily chased down a difficult revised target of 210 with 7 balls to spare in the contest reduced to 24 overs per side because of rain. Needing to score at nearly 9 runs and over, Bangladesh took command of the run chase early through Soumya Sankar, who hit 9 fours and 3 sixes. The left-handed opener struck a sparkling 66 off 41 balls, but it was Mossadegh Hossain batting at number 7 who turned the screws on West Indies with a breathtaking 24-ball unbeaten 52 at the end. Earlier, West Indies had reached 131 without loss in the 21st over when the inclement weather drove players from the field. Neither opening batsman looked troubled by Bangladesh's attack, with Shea Hope hammering 6 fours and 3 sixes off 64 balls, and Sunil Ambrose notching 7 fours in the 78-ball knock. The defeat to Bangladesh was the 3rd straight in the tournament for West Indies and 7th in 9 meetings over the last 12 months. Staying with cricket, West Indies will have added incentive to win the World Cup starting later this month after the International Cricket Council on Friday announced a record $4 million jackpot for the champions. The tournament, which runs from May 30th to July 14th, will see the Windies host England, defending champions Australia, along with Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, New Zealand, Pakistan, South Africa and Sri Lanka challenging for top honours. The 10 teams will face each other in a round-robin group stage, with the top 4 advancing to the semi-finals. The losing semi-finalists will pick up $800,000 each, while the losing finalists will collect $2 million. Teams will earn $40,000 for each match they win in the preliminary round, while the 6 teams that miss out on the final 4 will get $100,000 each. The prize money is part of an overall $10 million payout for the tournament, in which West Indies are 2-time champions, having won the first 2 editions in 1975 and 1979. Tributes have been pouring in for Olympian and Trinidad and Tobago's top-ranked table tennis player Dexter St. Louis, who died in France on Thursday following a brief illness. TNT's Olympic Committee boss Brian Lewis described him as a sporting hero who stood up for what he believed, while Table Tennis Association President David Joseph said St. Louis was the best contributor to the game and the greatest servant of the sport. Also paying tribute was Kwame Lawrence, TV6's multimedia sports director and a former opponent of St. Louis. In this report by TV6's Sergio Dufour, Lawrence says he believes the late table tennis player should be honored by the government for his contribution to the sport.
Dexter St. Louis created history for Trinidad and Tobago by qualifying for the Olympic Games in 1996. For a player from this part of the world, that is an amazing feat, and that stands out. Among all his many achievements, his first qualification for the Olympic Games in 1996 Atlanta was tremendous. He He put Trinidad and Tobago on the map.
Lawrence ranks St. Louis as the best player to pass through the game in TNT and says it's the end of an era.
This is the end of an era in Trinidad and Tobago table tennis. The English-speaking Caribbean sector was respected widely across the globe in table tennis, in the Caribbean and the wider world, and this is a tremendous loss.
He thinks that the athlete is deserving of a special honor even in his passing.
He should be honored by the government of Trinidad and Tobago for what he was, a national icon, a national hero, and certainly let his death not be in vain. Let this be an opportunity for growth in sport.
A release from St. Louis lawyers stated that St. Louis will be remembered for his relentless work ethic, sense of humor, and passion for justice.
And finally, in football, a tight budget has forced Gold Cup newcomers Guyana's Golden Jaguars to set up camp in the United States. HGP's Jaden Samuel tells us more.
National team headlines Group D, which will be the last group to start play June 18 at the Allianz Field in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The USA will be joined by Panama, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Golden Jaguars, the group moving to First Energy Stadium in Cleveland for their second round of matches on June 22. Group play will then close with Group D's final match day at Children's Mercy Park in Kansas City on June 26. The knockout rounds will begin on June 29 at Hudson's NRG Stadium with 2 quarterfinal matches, while the other 2 quarterfinals will be played June 30 in Philadelphia. Speaking to HGP Sport, Wayne Ford gave a quick insight of what the coming days will be like for the ballers.
The preparation plan as it is sees us doing a camp in New Jersey, flying to another country, I wouldn't mention that, playing a game, and then from that country to Minneapolis. So we have abandoned the idea of doing the home camp because we couldn't find a worthy opponent that is willing to absorb the cost to travel this way for a game. It's a demanding travel budget for all of the countries in the CONCACAF Confederation, so everyone is being very disciplined in how they spend that money.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Welcome to this year's 50th Caribbean Broadcast Union Assembly on the island of San Andres. San Andres is a small archipelago located in between Jamaica and Panama in the western Caribbean Sea. A lush, exotic island rich in culture, history, gastronomy, and breathtaking scenic views. Known for its beaches and 7-colored crystalline waters, the island of San Andres will be proudly hosting this year's event. CBU members will enjoy top-of-the-line accommodations for an unforgettable experience in San Andres, connecting Caribbean nations through this year's 50th edition of the CBU Assembly.
The world's debt is 184 trillion US dollars. That's about 86,000 US dollars per person. Join Linda Tessar, the Central Bank of Barbados 2019 Distinguished Visiting Fellow for the 6th edition of the Caribbean Economic Forum, as she helps us understand just how in a world of rising debt, we in the Caribbean can stay afloat. Follow this important live broadcast of the 6th Caribbean Economic Forum on social media and on radio and television in Barbados and across the region. Thursday, May 23rd at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. in Jamaica. Visit www.centralbank.org.bb for more information.
These are the 3 knives. We can take this whole thing apart with just these 3 knives. You need to take this apart, right? And we're going to come and just one chop. And you go in between each rib.
Now, part of this, remember he talked about the gristle, the white soft bone and everything? We would actually take that and cut part of that off and cook that in a barbecue sauce that was primarily vinegar.
And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport round the clock, subscribe to CanadaNews.com, and for more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again on Monday, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night and a safe weekend.